Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Badi Paschatya Deshatarine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyabadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo,
Haribo, Haribo,
Nitai Gaura Haribo,
Haribo, Haribo,
Gaura Haribo,
Haribo, Haribo.
Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai,
Jai,
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai
Jai,
Yoda Premanande.
Hari 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 Bol.
Hare Krishna. We are continuing. We have Bhakta Adam, and we have Nikunja Nagari, Devidasi, and that's everyone for now. It is Ram Navami. Hare Krishna. Happy Ram Navami. We are just continuing as usual. We are in Canto 1, Chapter 8, Prayers by Queen Kunti, and we are on text 35. 1-8-35. So I'm going to start with the invocation. You can please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayat Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridyantasto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Suhrit Satam Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Okay. Here to here. From ear to ear. Alright. Text 35. Bhavesmin klishyamananam avidya kama karma bihi shravana smaranarhani karisyaniti kechana. And yet others say that you appeared to rejuvenate the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshipping, and so on, in order that the conditioned souls suffering from material pangs might take advantage and gain liberation. Purport. In the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the Lord asserts that he appears in every millennium just to reestablish the way of religion. The way of religion is made by the Supreme Lord. No one can manufacture a new path of religion, as is the fashion for certain ambitious persons. The factual way of religion is to accept the Lord in spontaneous love. A living being cannot help but render service because he is constitutionally made for that purpose. The only function of the living being is to render service to the Lord. The Lord is great, and living beings are subordinate to him. Therefore, the duty of the living being is just to serve him only. Unfortunately, the illusioned living beings, out of misunderstanding only, become servants of the senses by material desire. This desire is called avidya, or nescience. And out of such desire, the living being makes different plans for material enjoyment centered about a perverted sex life. He therefore becomes entangled in the chain of birth and death by transmigrating into different bodies on different planets under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Unless, therefore, one is beyond the boundary of this nescience, one cannot get free from the threefold miseries of material life. That is the law of nature. The Lord, however, out of his causeless mercy, because he is more merciful to the suffering living beings than they can expect, appears before them and renovates the principles of devotional service comprised of hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshiping, praying, cooperating, and the adoption of all the above-mentioned items, or any one of them, can help a conditioned soul get out of the tangle of nescience and thus become liberated by all material sufferings created by the living being illusioned by the external energy. This particular type of mercy is bestowed upon the living being by the Lord in the form of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Granantya Bhikshnasa Smaranti Nandanti Tavehitam Janaha Sa eva Pashyantya Chirena Tavakam Bhava Pravaho Paramam Padambujam. O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities, or take pleasure in others doing so, certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. Purport. The Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, cannot be seen by our present conditional vision. In order to see him, one has to change his present vision by developing a different condition of life full of spontaneous love of Godhead. When Sri Krishna was personally present on the face of the globe, not everyone could see him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Materialists like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, Jarasandha, and Shishupal were highly qualified personalities by acquisition of material assets. But they were unable to appreciate the presence of the Lord. Therefore, even though the Lord may be present before our eyes, it is not possible to see him unless we have the necessary vision. This necessary qualification is developed by the process of devotional service only, beginning with hearing about the Lord from the right sources. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the popular literatures which are generally heard, chanted, repeated, and so on by the people in general. But in spite of such hearing and so on, sometimes it is experienced that the performer of such devotional service does not see the Lord eye to eye. The reason is that the first item, Shravana, is very important. If hearing is from the right sources, it acts very quickly. Generally, people hear from unauthorized persons. Such unauthorized persons may be very learned by academic qualifications, but because they do not follow the principles of devotional service, hearing from them becomes a sheer waste of time. Sometimes the texts are interpreted fashionably to suit their own purposes. Therefore, first one should select a competent and bona fide speaker and then hear from him. When the hearing process is perfect and complete, the other processes become automatically perfect in their own way. Wow, I'm going to read that sentence again. When the hearing process is perfect and complete, the other... There are different transcendental activities of the Lord, and each and every one of them is competent to bestow the desired result, provided the hearing process is perfect. In the Bhagavatam, the activities of the Lord begin from his dealings with the Pandavas. There are many other pastimes of the Lord in connection with his dealings with the Asuras and others. And in the 10th canto, the sublime dealings with his conjugal associates, the gopis, as well as with his married wives at Dwarka, are mentioned. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no difference in the transcendental nature of each and every dealing of the Lord. But sometimes people, in an unauthorized hearing process, take more interest in hearing about his dealings with the gopis. Such an inclination indicates the lusty feelings of the hearer. So a bona fide speaker of the dealings of the Lord never indulges in such hearings. One must hear about the Lord from the very beginning, as in the Srimad Bhagavatam or any other scriptures, and that will help the hearer attain perfection by progressive development. One should not therefore consider that his dealings with the Pandavas are less important than his dealings with the gopis. We must always remember that the Lord is always transcendental to all mundane attachment. In all the above mentioned dealings of the Lord, he is the hero in all circumstances. And hearing about him or about his devotees or combatants is conducive to spiritual life. It is said that the Vedas and Puranas, and so on, are all made to revive our lost relation with him. Hearing all of these scriptures is essential. Te hita prabho jahasasi swet suhrido nujivanaha yashang nachanyad bhavata padambujat parayanam rajasuyo jitang hasam. See how important hearing is? Just by if your hearing process is perfect and complete, then all other processes are perfect, will become perfect and complete very fast. But the thing is, if we're not hearing properly, then none of the other ones can be perfect. Hare Krishna. Oh my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. You are leaving us today, though we are complete. Now when all kings are at enmity. I'm going to read that again. Oh my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us? Purport. The Pandavas are most fortunate because with all good luck they were entirely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. In the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune. But in the case of our transcendental relation with the Lord, it is the most fortunate case when we can live completely dependent on him. The material disease is due to thinking of becoming independent of everything. But the cruel material nature does not allow us to become independent. The false attempt to become independent of the stringent laws of nature is known as material advancement of experimental knowledge. The whole material world is moving on this false attempt of becoming independent of the laws of nature. Beginning from Ravana, who wanted to prepare a direct staircase to the planets of heaven, down to the present age, they are trying to overcome the laws of nature. They are trying now to approach distant planetary systems by electronic mechanical power. But the highest goal of human civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on him. The highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with valor, but at the same time depend completely on the Lord. The Pandavas were the ideal executors of this standard of civilization. Undoubtedly, they were completely dependent on the goodwill of Lord Sri Krishna, but they were not idle parasites of the Lord. They were all highly qualified both by personal character and by physical activities. Still, they always looked for the mercy of the Lord because they knew that every living being is dependent by constitutional position. The perfection of life is, therefore, to become dependent on the will of the Lord, instead of becoming falsely independent in the material sense. Those who try to become falsely independent of the Lord are called anatta, or without any guardian, whereas those who are completely dependent on the will of the Lord are called sanatta, or those having someone to protect them. Therefore, we must try to be sanatta so that we can always be protected from the unfavorable condition of material existence. By the deluding power of the external material nature, we forget that the material condition of life is the most undesirable perplexity. The Bhagavad Gita therefore directs us, 7:19, that after many, many births, one fortunate person becomes aware of the fact that Vasudeva is all in all, and that the best way of leading one's life is to surrender unto him completely. That is the sign of a Mahatma. All the members of the Pandava family were Mahatmas in household life. Maharaj Yudhisthira was the head of these Mahatmas, and Queen Kunti Devi was the mother. The lessons of the Bhagavad Gita and all the Puranas, specifically the Bhagavat Purana, are therefore inevitably connected with the history of the Pandava Mahatmas. For them, separation from the Lord was just like the separation of a fish from water. Srimati Kunti Devi, therefore, felt such separation like a thunderbolt, and the whole prayer of the queen is to try to persuade the Lord to stay with them. After the battle of Kurukshetra, although the inimical kings were killed, their sons and grandsons were still there to deal with the Pandavas. It is not only the Pandavas who are put into the condition of enmity, but all of us are always in such a condition. And the best way of living is to become completely dependent on the will of the Lord and thereby overcome all difficulties of material existence. Kevayam namarupapyam yadupi sahapandavaha bhavata darshanam yarhi rishikanam eveshituhu. As the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with the Pandavas and Yadus, will end at once. Purport. Kunti Devi is quite aware that the existence of the Pandavas is due to Sri Krishna only. The Pandavas are undoubtedly well established in name and fame and are guided by the great King Yudhisthira, who is morality personified, and the Yadus are undoubtedly great allies. But without the guidance of Lord Krishna, all of them are non-entities, as much as the senses of the body are useless without the guidance of consciousness. No one should be proud of his prestige, power, and fame without being guided by the favor of the Supreme Lord. The living beings are always dependent, and the ultimate dependable object is the Lord himself. We may therefore invent by our advancement of material knowledge all sorts of counteracting material resources, but without being guided by the Lord, all such inventions end in fiasco, however strong and stout the reactionary elements may be. Hare Krishna. Just a quick comment here. Just, it's a theme lately. For several days we're hearing about how dependent we are. And, in the material world, the tendency is to think we're independent. And we become puffed up by material means, material resources, material whatever, anything. We think that we're in control and independent and depending on money and whatever. It's such a powerful realization to have, and meditation to practice. Meditating on our dependence on the Lord, and the more that we are acting in that dependence, then the more the Lord also reciprocates with us. It doesn't mean that we're incapable of doing anything, because like what we heard Prabhupada said, how do you put it? He said the highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with valor, but at the same time depend completely on the Lord. Not to become what do you say? Not to become a parasite. So it's an interesting balance, that one works hard for Krishna, but is dependent on Krishna at the same time. It's it's to recognize in what area and in what ways am I to put my endeavor, and in what area and what ways do I accept the Lord's dominion over me, my activities, and so on. But without being guided by the Lord, all such inventions end in fiasco, however strong and stout the reactionary elements may be. Or everything we work hard for is going to come to an end, and our life is going to come to an end eventually, and everything we worked hard eventually withers away with time. Nayam sabishyate tatra yate danim gadadhara tvatpadar ankita bhati swalakshana vilakshitai. O Gadadhar, Krishna, our kingdom is now being marked by the impressions of your feet, and therefore it appears beautiful. But when you leave, it will no longer be so. Report. There are certain particular marks on the feet of the Lord which distinguish the Lord from others. The marks of a flag, thunderbolt, an instrument to drive an elephant, umbrella, lotus, disc, and so on, are on the bottom of the Lord's feet. These marks are impressed upon the soft dust of the land where the Lord traverses. The land of Hastinapur was thus marked while Lord Sri Krishna was there with the Pandavas, and the kingdom of the Pandavas thus flourished by such auspicious signs. Kunti Devi pointed out these distinguished features and was afraid of ill luck in the absence of the Lord. Ime janapada shriddha supakvaushadhi virudaha vanadrin yudanvanto yedhande tava vikshatai. All these cities and villages are flourishing in all respects because the herbs and grains are in abundance. The trees are full of fruits, the rivers are flowing, the hills are full of minerals, and the oceans full of wealth. And this is all due to your glancing over them. Purport. Human prosperity flourishes by natural gifts and not by gigantic industrial enterprises. The gigantic industrial enterprises are products of a godless civilization, and they cause the destruction of the noble aims of human life. They cause the destruction of the noble aims of human life. The more we go on increasing such troublesome industries to squeeze out the vital energy of the human being, the more there will be unrest and dissatisfaction of the people in general, although a few only can live lavishly by exploitation. The natural gifts, such as grains and vegetables, fruits, rivers, the hills of jewels and minerals, and the seas full of pearls, are supplied by the order of the Supreme. And as he desires, material nature produces them in abundance or restricts them at times. The natural law is that the human being may take advantage of these godly gifts by nature and satisfactorily flourish on them without being captivated by the exploitative motive of lording it over material nature. The more we attempt to exploit material nature according to our whims of enjoyment, the more we shall become entrapped by the reaction of such exploitative attempts. If we have sufficient grains, fruits, vegetables, and herbs, then what is the necessity of running a slaughterhouse and killing poor animals? A man need not kill an animal if he has sufficient grains and vegetables to eat. The flow of river waters fertilizes the fields, and there is more than what we need. Minerals are produced in the hills and the jewels in the ocean. If the human civilization has sufficient grains, minerals, jewels, water, milk, and so on, then why should it hanker after terrible industrial enterprises at the cost of the labor of some unfortunate men? But all these natural gifts are dependent on the mercy of the Lord. What we need, therefore, is to be obedient to the laws of the Lord and achieve the perfection of human life by devotional service. The indications by Kunti Devi are just to the point. She desires that God's mercy be bestowed upon them so that natural prosperity be maintained by His grace. Atta Vishvesha Vishvatman Vishvamurte Swakeshu Me Sneha Pashamimam Chindi Dridham Pandushu Vrishnasu. O Lord of the universe, soul of the universe, O personality of the form of the universe, please therefore sever my tie of affection from my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. Purport. A pure devotee of the Lord is ashamed to ask anything in self-interest from the Lord, but the householders are sometimes obliged to ask favors from the Lord, being bound by the tie of family affection. Srimati Kunti Devi was conscious of this fact, and therefore she prayed to the Lord to cut off the affectionate tie from her own kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. The Pandavas are her own sons, and the Vrishnis are the members of her paternal family. Krishna was equally related to both the families. Both the families required the Lord's help because both were dependent devotees of the Lord. Srimati Kunti Devi wished Sri Krishna to remain with her sons, the Pandavas, of the benefit. All these partialities troubled the mind of Kunti, and therefore she desired to cut off the affectionate tie. A pure devotee cuts off the limited ties of affection for his family and widens his activities of devotional service for all forgotten souls. The typical example is the band of 6 Goswamis, who followed the path of Lord Chaitanya. All of them belong to the most enlightened and cultured, rich families of the higher castes. But for the benefit of the mass of population, they left their comfortable homes and became mendicants. To cut off all family affection means to broaden the field of activities. Without doing this, no one can be qualified as a Brahmin, a king, a public leader, or a devotee of the Lord. The personality of Godhead as an ideal king showed this by example. Sri Ramachandra cut off the tie of affection for his beloved wife to manifest the qualities of an ideal king. Such personalities as a Brahmin, a devotee, a king, or a public leader must be very broad-minded in discharging their respective duties. Srimati Kunti Devi was conscious of this fact, and being weak, she prayed to be free from such bondage of family affection. The Lord is addressed as the Lord of the universe, or the Lord of the universal mind, indicating his all-powerful ability to cut the hard knot of family affection. Therefore, it is sometimes experienced that the Lord, out of his special affinity towards a weak devotee, breaks the family affection by force of circumstances arranged by his all-powerful energy. By doing so, he causes the devotee to become completely dependent on him, and thus clears the path for his going back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yay.
Any discussion points? Hari.
I have one from
Yeah, it's a direct call for us to.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have one too. Just, yeah, sort of what you said. Um, it struck me too about being how we're the natural law of things. And also, I have a bunch of notes here that we as human beings, well, first of all, our the natural function of us as human beings is to serve, and we want to be dependent, and we have to be careful, is sort of my interpretation, because we can easily get entangled in non-desirable things. But if we are serving Krishna, who is so merciful, we can break that cycle of nescience. And I just appreciate in the first canto that it's just laid out so practically, and everything sort of builds on that. But just talking about how human beings that we are naturally, we want to be dependent. And so why not have something that's lovely, like Krishna consciousness, to be dependent on? Um, was my point. And then I heard spontaneity again tonight, how that's the like topmost, if we can just be spontaneously engaged in loving Krishna were the things that stood out
Yeah.
to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. We are dependent. It's just a matter of depending on the right thing,
Right.
basically. And then, like with the spontaneity, we may be just observe our own habits and behaviors. We may find ourselves spontaneously going to something other than Krishna. Like people are habituated and they're spontaneously go to their phone, you know, and that kind of thing. Like we can just get down like boots on the ground to our daily habits and what we're doing, and train ourselves to, instead of like going to the phone, just go to the japa beads, or instead
Mhm.
of going to the phone or whatever, then just go straight, have like a Bhagavad Gita around, and then just train yourself to go to the Bhagavad Gita and open it and start reading or something like that. Share something?
No, that was it. Well, actually, I do like the way Srila Prabhupada explains here, and when I hear it, I remember how he explains like the sea is full of because of me, and the mountains and all the things that we see, just everything is part and parcel of Krishna, and remembering that he says like it's because of me, and if you're going to be dependent on something, this is a good thing to be dependent on, and I am the source. It's just good, a lot of nectar.
Right. Yeah, and in the same thing as in the same section, we're hearing that basically like the exploitative mood causes, the Lord can supply or withhold at any time, at different times. And how did he put it? Um, and basically, yeah, the natural gifts such as grains and vegetables, fruits, rivers, the hills of jewels and minerals, and the seas full of pearls are supplied by the order of the Supreme, and as he desires, material nature produces them in abundance or restricts them at times. The natural law is that the human being may take advantage of these godly gifts by nature and satisfactorily flourish on them without being captivated by the exploitative motive of lording it over material nature. And, well, this is sort of a mundane example, but recently I've been just kind of like studying into some history in different parts of the world, and hearing about like when the conquistadors were first kind of going and surveying South America and like the Amazon and stuff. It has been said from some sources like they would go, and the local tribes had you know flourishing resources, and even had gold. Like they're just like, gold. Like they're just like, here you go. Like, and I was just thinking of it's kind of a nice picture of the point that's being made here of living in harmony with nature, not being unnecessarily exploitative, not that one sentence that we read was about industrial enterprises, big uh, let me just find it real quick, if I can. Anyway, basically destroying I can't remember exactly how Prabhupada put it. Um, I can't remember, but the industrialization is actually like what I think Prabhupada said basically is not steering people towards their natural good goal. It's like taking them away and exploiting them and whatnot. But anyway, you can see that in like the Europeans trying to expand and industrialize, going and killing and taking, stealing the land and the resources and just going and killing them all and taking their gold. Uh, you can see the difference uh, in the civilization they developed. We're now basically you can't just go out in nature and find gold and find resources so much. Hardly any of the trees here bear fruit. You know, the at least right here, the Ohio River is practically toxic. Like you really don't even want to go in it. You get sick. It's like polluted from glass factories and steel mills and different things, and you can just see the difference. Whereas we hear about not even that long ago, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, tribes living more in at least more in harmony with nature and having so much resources. Anyway, Hare Krishna. But the point is that we're being revealed. It's being revealed to us about the mind state of a devotee and the mind state to cultivate of service, not exploitation, and depending on the Lord, especially, not depending on one's own power or resources or whatever it is. And if we can actually get in that state of mind, then Krishna takes care of us. It's like that's such a it's a really it's a it's an aspect of devotional service that um, really beckons one's deeper trust and like a leap of faith. Because we think we're taking shelter and finding our security in our current resources, and we think like what's gonna happen if I don't have money, or what's gonna happen if I don't have this or that, and how am I gonna live? Everything's gonna fall apart. I'm gonna die. So, but actually, it's not true. We have to also take the advice and the guidance of Krishna conscious persons who can help us. It doesn't mean giving up all our resources necessarily, but it means taking them in the right state of mind, and applying and using them for Krishna service. All right, Krishna. Any other points? Okay. I think I might actually just call it there. It's kind of a good stopping point, I think. Let me see. Yeah.
I hope you get better.
Huh?
I hope you feel better.
Oh, thanks. I'm all right. Reading helps. Hearing Bhagavatam always
Sure,
helps.
sure.
Almost every day I come in feeling like some kind of way, and then I go out feeling like 10 times better.
Very nice.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah. Well, I'll end there. All glories to the Prabhupada ki jai.
Jay,
Vancha kalpa tarutanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Nantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki
Jay,
jai.
Jai.
Alright, thank you for tuning in. Krishna willing, we'll be here tomorrow, same time. Hare Krishna.